2 minutes past 12, and with the rescheduling, I don't expect too many more to join us. Maybe today I will record it and put it up on the homepage again, the recording. Again, sorry for the rescheduling. Sometimes life prioritizes itself. But today I wanted to talk to you about the experience room and Servicescapes. I don't know, have you had a chance to watch the videos and read some of the articles?
Not me, unfortunately. I didn't.
No,
I have not been able to.
No problem. I know you're also following a second course, so I guess it's, and you're working full time, I suppose, or?
Yeah. So I'm trying to keep up with all.
I understand, and that's not so easy. And Jürgen and Adam and Natalia, have you been able to look into the videos and the research literature for this module?
The video, yes, but the literature I haven't been able to do it. No.
You're no problem. You do that in any of your time, but just good for me to know. But because I will refer to some of the videos, but then it's probably also good. And the intent of my webinar today was maybe introducing the topic once more and telling you why this, I think, is so important. And a lot of researchers think this is important, this topic, what we really mean when we talk about experience room and Servicescape, and maybe combine the first article of Mary Jo Bittner from 1992 with my dissertation, which is published 2012. So that's combining the two major literatures in this module. So, and you can see my slides now, I hope. You do? Yeah, perfect. And then this works as well. So the Servicescapes, as is explained in the video, it's the physical environment which customers are exposed to, and staff as well, for that matter of fact, which impacts services and shops and the customer experience within them. And I want to show you some practical examples and some pictures, and you might shout out. You can unmute your microphone, and or you just write in the chat as you please. But I'm going to show you two pictures, and the first two will be hotel lobbies, and I would like you to tell me what kind of service setting this is. And I'm just looking if we can, the chat room is here. Yes, now I see. All right, perfect. Thanks for answering, Natalia, as well. Now I have the chat also visible. So I show you now two pictures, and can you just quickly tell me what kind of establishment this is, what the service level is, what the price is going to be in this establishment, just by looking at the picture? And very quickly, okay? You ready?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah. It's a hotel lobby, or kind of a hotel. What would it be? What could it be?
It's a normal, it looks like a normal low to middle price range hotel lobby.
Yeah, do you all agree for Jürgen's rights for young people? Yeah. Adam and Natalia, do you have any comments or reactions to this?
Yes, I agree with you. There's a poster of like Punk and Coca-Cola at the back.
Yeah. Okay, and then I show you the next one. All right. Also, very quickly, some reactions. Also, what kind of service level price range is this one?
This is high end.
High end.
Looks like 5-star.
Luxury, 5-star. Do you get room service here?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. Did you get room service in the place before?
Probably more self-service.
Yeah. And And I just show you in what kind of, the first one was a hostel in Germany. So you maybe could read from the lobby. The other one is the luxury one, as you said, is the Raffles Hotel lobby in Singapore. So some of you maybe have seen it from the inside live. It's a very fancy, nice hotel. And the interesting part here is, I think, you've just seen the pictures for 2 seconds, maybe. You haven't seen no brand name. You haven't seen no price tag, no nothing. But you immediately get the right impression from the physical evidence, from the Servicescape, what kind of service you expect in these facilities, right? No nothing, no prior knowledge of any of those, just your prior knowledge and your experiences and categorization of establishments. So just by looking at the picture of the physical environment. I show you 2 more pictures. And now we're gonna move to something more daily, to shopping centers or supermarkets. If you take a look at this facility, and maybe some of you recognize it. In which shop are we here? The Swedes could know. But
Lidl.
Exactly. Lidl, or the Germans. Lidl, Jürgen, yeah, low cost, exactly. Also, there's no, I don't think you see any brand name, do you? How did you know that it was Lidl?
The service settings.
And can you elaborate on this? But what does it tell?
Yeah, I mean, I see the boxes. I see the box on the right, on the right side.
Yeah.
Which means if I'm going to buy bulk, which indicates cheap.
Yeah.
Which indicates good deal. Yeah, budget. Not exclusive one single, and so on.
Yeah.
That's first impression.
Exactly. All shops, Jürgen writes, all shops looks like this in Lidl. That's true. And Natalia writes that it's blue, and the way you place the goods in boxes, not even unpacked. And I would say it's the blue in combination with the yellow, I suppose. That's the Lidl logo, the Lidl colors. So, and again, you didn't see any brand name, just by the design of the shop, with the working with the colors, the similarity of all, consistency in the design. You immediately figure out which shop it is, even if you don't maybe regularly shop there. The next supermarket. You recognize Tobias maybe from an earlier webinar. We conduct a lot of research there. This is maybe for the Swedes. Which could it be? Which brand? A supermarket? Yes, right. It's ICA, exactly. And how do you see it? No idea. Yeah, you don't recognize it, Jürgen? No. But you think of it probably as, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's the red and white color, large assortments. If you compare the height of the aisle, the lighting is much different also. And as you were saying before, the former looks rather cheap, and that's exactly what they want to send, right? The message. They are cheaper than their competitors. And ICA is a little bit more exclusive, but of course has good deals as well, but a much different brand positioning they want to achieve. And they do this with the physical environment, and that is not by chance. And you got the impressions that they want you to have. So it's good marketing, I'd say. And again, this is just showing you why the physical environment is important. Without even seeing a brand name, you see what we can achieve with the good design of the Servicescape. And then we just talked about some issues here. In the videos, you talk about a lot of different roles that the Servicescape has. One of which is the packaging here. which tells you kind of in the hotel scenario what kind of service you expect from the service. The Servicescape forms as a sort of package for the service which is included. The second one, the role, and you can watch the first video. It's maybe explained in more detail, but I can just quickly go. It's the facilitator. It helps us flowing through the Servicescape. If I would ask you, which shop is this here from the floor plan?
Mm-hmm.
IKEA, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Jürgen, you wrote it already. Exactly, and it's funny because you just see a floor plan, right? I show this to hundreds and thousands of people, students and business people. Immediately, always IKEA comes to intention. It's a perfect sketch of a IKEA showroom. And do you see, by the way? Yes, we can maybe work this. What is located here in the middle at each IKEA store? Or not maybe exactly here where I pointed it, but in the middle of the shop, halfway through your customer journey through the store? What do you find there? You must have been to IKEA, haven't you? Asa, where is the kids' play area? The restaurant, Jürgen, full pot. The restaurant is there. And is that a chance that the restaurant is located halfway through the store? Or what is the underlying thinking maybe behind this location?
I know there's the restaurant in IKEA in Karlstad. I didn't know it was in the middle of it.
It's standard. It's not by chance that it's in the middle.
Okay.
Any takes? Yeah, exactly. That's you've managed, you're halfway through, but you need to refill your batteries. They give you a good deal on a very decent food to very decent prices. So you get again the feeling that this must be very cheap here, and you got new energy to take on the second half. So this is by design. Talking about the layout and the shop helps us here. This is not the main point and the role of the facilitator maybe, but this is part of it. And then you see, what do we see if we look at the floor of IKEA? You don't maybe remember? You see arrows on the floor, right? So if you're looking around and we're shopping and kind of lost, maybe you look on the floor and immediately see an arrow, and you will not think, you would just go with the flow and go where the arrow points you. And it will point you through the entire store. And why is this complicated floor plan like this? Have you thought about this? Why do they send you like this way around?
So if I pick a guess to make sure that we see every offering they have, or exactly. Most of the offering they have.
Exactly. You see all the goods, and when you see all the goods, what do?
You buy them.
You buy more. Exactly, Natalia. Exactly, and this is what happens, right? Who maybe not personally, maybe your wives or partners went through an IKEA. I'm just going to look. And you come out and you definitely spend something because you see a great deal where you say, I cannot resist. And you, like very few people go through an IKEA shop and do not spend anything. So this is the way the floor plan. And this is obviously not only the case in IKEA, this is in other shops as well. And but also as we have now more and more stores in IKEA, for instance, and they're I remember when I was little in Germany, we had to drive hours to get to the next IKEA shop, and people did this on the weekend. And now every other every bigger city really throughout Europe has their IKEA store. Now people don't drive this long, and maybe you just want to pick up something which is located and you know beforehand where it's located. And IKEA knows this and doesn't want to offend its customers either, so they give you the shortcuts here to give you an opportunity to, if you just wanted to buy this one thing, to pick up this shop. So it's all by design, and it's the floor plan and the layout and the Servicescape facilitates our journey through the store. And what is in the end here at the if you pay here, what do you find here where the circle is? Do you see my nice drawings, by the way? Any ideas? What is in the more food stop? Yeah, exactly. More food, and is exactly a small restaurant and food shop service point with incredible deals, I'd say. You get a hot dog and a drink for what, €1 or 10 crowns, or a slice of pizza, some quick sugar energy kicks for a fantastic deal. And also, is this by chance? No, it's not. It connects to a theory from psychology, and connects to our memory, and it's by design exactly. And you know what we usually tend to remember of a process as human beings? It's the starting point, then the general direction of an episode if it goes up and down, and then the end point. So this is what we typically remember. So the first point is the introduction will not be difficult, and the general layout here in IKEA is that you spend a lot of money, more than you expected. So that's why they need to make you happy in the last deal, making a very, very good deal on maybe some food, and finish the episode in the IKEA store on a positive note. So the initial point, the general process of the episode, and the ending. It's the same for presentations, why the introduction and the end are so important for presentations. It's relating back to what our memory is, what our process. We remember the introduction, the finish, and then the middle part, we just remember if it was somewhat upward or downward. This is what we usually remember. So this is connected here very neatly in the floor plan of the IKEA store. So very much by design, nothing by chance, very neatly done. So this is, now I just have to, how do I end my annotation? So this is the facilitating role, right? Then you have the socializer role that you see maybe if we sit in a waiting room or in an airport, in a bus, if we sit in a bench like this and this, the layout will influence how we socialize with people within the Servicescape. And then it's a differentiator as well, different roles of the Servicescape. I'm going to come back to the role of the facilitator in a second. Just showing you in all what we talked about now is really, and I need to clear this annotations because now they, okay. This is the Servicescape model, and this is the first article, what the first article is about, really explaining what happens. And summarizing all what we talked about now in the last 20 minutes. So there's 3 environmental dimensions, ambient conditions, space function, and sign, similance, artifacts, which together form a perceived Servicescape. This is kind of the picture you looked at, the first pictures. You get an immediate response. When you look at a physical space, you don't later you could explain what made this look luxurious. You could see that this is a fancy quality, that it maybe was marble floors or high ceilings. Later, when you think about it, you can deduct those ambient conditions and the environmental dimensions. And this is what architects can work with, obviously, to give you this feeling of a perceived servicescape. And then depending on your internal, or like you have some internal responses towards the servicescapes, either, and it could be cognitive, you could, like we talked about categorizations, prior experiences of hotel lobbies, you would categorize this environment in certain categories. It will give you some, depending on your experience, has some symbolic meaning, like the marble usually shows something highly luxurious, expensive, whereas cardboard boxes, which are like not even unwrapped, as in IKEA, have some symbolic meaning of cheapness, maybe, and then depending on your internal responses, or you have some maybe underlying emotional mood, you get some feeling from this servicescape. You could also get physiological reactions. You could have discomfort moving through some servicescapes, or it could cause you pain, for instance, or could be so cold that it's uncomfortable. And this is internal responses which then form your behavior. And the behavior you could see is like in two major categories. There's either approach behavior or avoidance behavior. Approach behavior is you want to stay longer, you want to spend more money, you like it, something positive, you feel comfortable, you continue with your plan, and you explore more. Or if it's avoidance behavior, then you don't feel you want to leave this place, you don't want to spend more, you don't want to explore. And then the third thing is it also impacts our social interactions. And this model is true for customers, but it holds also valid for employees' responses. And this is also very important for all servicescapes, for customers or for staff. And this is why we threw in the third article here, a recent article of Tobias, me, and another colleague, Erik Westlund here, where we investigated the office floor plan, which impact that has. And this, in fact, then has an impact on, of course, how well how much similar system, how much we like to spend time at the office, how well we feel, and how good we perform our jobs. So it's true for customers and employees. And this is the servicescape model. All right? Can you follow this far? Or do you have any questions or comments or reactions on this? Convincing or not convincing? Have you ever thought about those issues? Or
I do have a question, but I'm not sure if it's best to ask you now or maybe save it for later.
Go ahead.
The whole concept of servicescape from the videos and as well as what we have learned so far from this discussion is, I think it primarily focuses a lot on the physical and environment, which is tangible. So in the video, it's also mentioned that it's easier for users or customers to grab these kind of values. So my question is, say, the concept of this servicescape, right? Could it be applied on something non-tangible? For example, like an application or a website, a game, a virtual reality or augmented reality application?
Very good question, and very good question. Glad that you raised it. And this is for sure true. In the first video, they differentiate between the facilities, the servicescape, and the web pages, for instance. I wouldn't make this separation. This is certainly true for web pages, and a lot of research has been conducted with the Servicescape model on web pages. This is true for other, I would call them tangible artifacts. When a home page, you don't grab the home page, but on your mobile you touch it anyway, so it's kind of tangible, and you definitely interact with it. So for sure applicable to those environments.
Thank you. Further question, say, would you be able to share like a bit more reading or things that you may have come across like on that in that regard, for example?
Online, yeah.
Yes.
For online Servicescapes, for sure, definitely. No worries.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'll post. You follow the Twitter feed, maybe on the homepage you see. Then I post the links there.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Perfect. I will do that in the afternoon. Awesome. Other comments and. No, then just this is kind of her article, Mary Jo Bittner's article when she announced this Servicescape model is from '92. That's a very long time ago. There's been done hundreds of research articles verifying this model, that you can change the music. By changing music in a certain type of restaurant, you can make people stay longer or stay shorter, spend more, spend less. This is a magic box for playground for researchers. You change something on the one side, and then you look on the outcome of the other side. It's like perfect, and then you can validate the module, and you have thousands of variables which you can change on the one side, and then you look at the spending outcomes or customer satisfaction on the others. So there's plenty of research been done and validating this model. So it's very very important, obviously, and a lot of companies, as you see maybe from the examples, do take this very serious, and rightly so. So I'm not now focusing more on the customers. We could have another webinar or entire module or course about the physical workplace design, how this is important for achieving good work outcomes and productivity and creativity in the workplace office. So it's a huge topic, obviously. We just quickly introduce here now the topic and what it's about. And now I'm making the switch kind of to my research, because I was not so much interested in changing one thing on variable on the other side and then look on the outcomes. I've been very much focused, and you see maybe the connections to the other modules here. The input-output kind of, which could be very much a resemblance of the module on customer impact, how we do influencing module with Lars E. Olsson, and where Tobias showed you some studies. Like, how can we, by changing this or this, how can we impact maybe customer spending or purchasing behavior? I maybe had more the starting point of a interactional perspective, like we had in the last module, but now not face-to-face and person-to-person, but we talked about it. You have interactions with the physical environment as well, and that's what I was much interested in. So my question, my guiding question for my thesis was, and PhD was, what do customers actually do in Servicescapes? And then how well does the Servicescape function as a facilitator, and where are the issues? Like when we having them, I talked a lot about with the IKEA example about the facilitator role. There was not much focus done to that point. What people do in Servicescapes, and how does the facilitator role work, and what issues come to play. What hiccups, maybe kind of a user interface. You see the Servicescape more, and do some interface testing almost. Very, if you relate it to an informatics maybe or IT area. So this was my guiding question. I was then involved in a research program which focused on public transport. And public transport, and here is also the relation to the video on resource integration, maybe, and my theoretical kind of standpoint. In public transport, the customer does basically everything. It's a self-service, right? So the physical environment, the Servicescapes, is very important, because you see very few staff, which you can ask for assistance. You interact with an app, with a home page, with a map, with a timetable. You maybe have some payment devices, which always are different from one city to another. And even in neighboring cities, they don't work sometimes similarly. So it's very elaborate Servicescape. It's spatially very extended. It's not one shop. It goes through the entire city or entire county or even the country or globally, depending on how you define your Servicescape in the setting. So my question here was then, how do customers interact with the Servicescape, and how do they conduct their trips actually, and what do they do, and what are the issues? And I don't know if many of you, the funny thing was kind of when I started this project, everyone told me and asked me, what should go wrong? What's the problem? Like, it's easy taking the bus. And I conducted 20 trips with 20 customers here in Karlstad in Sweden and in Gothenburg, and from very experienced public transport users to very much to very car dependent people. So even if the super users of public transport, as soon as you ask them to travel to a spot where they usually don't travel to, always something happens. So nothing goes smooth. It's not that easy. It's very not that easy to use public transport. And you maybe have some own experience that you come to a new city, and then you have to look things up. The payment system doesn't work. You cannot. Now everyone swishes maybe in Sweden, but like changing from cash payments to non-cash payment was a huge issue. And can you pay with cash or can you not pay with cash? How do you pay? And this is just, and this is, and the biggest competitor to your service is a car, which stands right in front of your place, where you can type, here I want to go, and then you get immediate like directions, and you know everything, how everything works. So this is what you're kind of competing to. So very important to get this right, and very difficult to get this right. I could talk, have many episodes on this, but we have too little time today to talk about all this. But just to give you a setting, what I was doing as a kind of study. So I did participation observation. I traveled with the customers. I picked them up at home or at workplace and asked them to travel to 2 spots, well-known spots in each city. And during those spots, I knew they started all from different locations, but they always had to go, and from the one they had to go to the other spot. And in those 2 spots, they had to change in a very large changing spot in Karlstad at the Stora Torget, the main place, and in Gothenburg at the Brunnsparken, which is a very complicated space where a lot of a hub for all the public transport modes of transport. And there always something happens, even for the very experienced ones. So, but just to get the kind of idea, I had my little camera with me at that time. I had this mustache as well. It must have been November at that time, I guess, when we took this picture. So I was following them with my camera. They also had a microphone attached to themselves, so I asked them to think aloud. So I asked them to tell me what is going on, what they were thinking about. Sometimes you see, like my colleague here in this picture, they stand in front of a machine and then they just scratch their head. It's very difficult to make sense of what was going on if they not talk loud and express what they're feeling or like experiencing. So so this is why I had the microphone. They had a microphone attached, and I just simply asked them, what do you experience right now? Can you elaborate on this? What do you're scratching your head? Can you tell me a little bit out? I try to elaborate and make them talk about their experience as they were experiencing them. So in this setting, it's very good technique, and not so good in shops because there's too much happening inside shops. But you could do it there as well, or in other facilities. So think aloud combined with participant observation. I had the videos, then I have 40 hours of videos with people traveling. A lot of it is, of course, just sitting in a bus and nothing happens. But when something happens, you have very good also data and narrative material to show then when you analyzed it in detail afterwards. To show decision makers what is going on at the shop floor, so to speak, for customers. It says much more when you show a 20-second episode of a customer moving through a Servicescape when something goes wrong, and then compared to on a customer satisfaction scale of 7, we scored a 5.8. Are we happy? Yeah. Maybe, but what does it tell us if we want to change something? Why are we not on 6? So with this technique, you can find out what is going wrong, where the issues is very much related to customer journey mapping. You maybe heard about this. It's a fantastic technique to gain some qualitative insights about your how your customer experience your service. So this is the method. So what I found out is, like, obviously, so the question was, what do customers do? So, and in public transport, but certainly also in other services, people navigate. They have to find their way to the bus stop. They have to find the way to the final destination, changing spots. They have to also find the way from the last bus stop to the final destination, and a lot of navigation on maps, physically through the environment, on home pages, a lot of navigating taking place. This is the first practice. So I looked at practices, what customers do. And please interrupt me if there's something you want to comment or ask about. That's the one. The other practice is ticketing, and nothing fancy and nothing mind-blowing observation here, but this is the main 2 practices customers engage in and participate in when using and producing, kind of co-producing public transport. I didn't look at what people do during the travels. That's a different way of, that's a different research question, and that was I not involved in. So, and those 2 practices here on ticketing is everything related to your ticket. And you could think of this is just a one-time thing, but if you travel with public transport, there's different zones, depends on how long you traveled. You think, is my ticket still valid? How far can I go? This is all practices related to ticketing. And so you have those 2 major practices. They would, in different service settings, they would look different. You would find different practices, what your customers are engaged in. Certainly when you could translate those practices, certainly to other services like amusement parks, you would have similar settings. You need to navigate, you think about your ticket, what is valid. But in other settings, you have probably a lot more practices going on. But this is the main base, the practices. All right? That's what customers do.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, for sure.
Yes, when, like, this is amazing. I like, I think how you did the customer journey and the number of hours you recorded is very extensive. My question is, say, when you did this, did you also complement this study with other kind of quantitative-based research, either to set up the context or to draw like further insights to challenge some of your findings, or altogether you did not employ any quantitative research methods at all in this study?
Very good question, Adam. Thank you for this. I'll get back to this in a second, if I may. Okay. Because
sure.
will finish. I will come back to this. But before I go back to quantitative methods, I want to show you what those practices here are made up from which activities they are made up of, and this is valid for both of those practices. And this is they are established or built on what I call resource integration activities, identifying, sense making, and using. And this is true for both practices. So in navigating, you identify signs, you identify a map which you first need to see. You identify a home page maybe which can be of help. You identify even a member of staff which can help you. This is the first activity in navigating and in ticketing. Identifying resources which can be of help. The second one, is sense making, is that understanding the resource. If you look at this picture here, or this lady here, she is in this situation trying to make sense of the map, and she cannot, because the map is very. This is an entire episode of itself. She's looking for a bus, which is not on the bus map, but the bus she is looking for is here on the tram map. So she's trying to make sense of this resource she identified to help her in her practice of navigating, but she cannot. And the last resource integration activity is making use of the resource, the individual resource, the map, in the practice of navigating, combining it maybe with other resources. So you have a kind of, the model you should think of is like this, that and depending on which step you are in the process and the practice, different resource integration activities will be of more focus. Sometimes it's about identifying a certain resource, another time it will be of using it, and other times it will be very critical to make sense of it, or the problems will arise with this. Yes, and here now, this is the kind of the finding of my entire thesis, and there I'm relating now back to the quantitative methods I applied. So what we can say, my thesis was about customer experiences of resource integration, and depending on your prior knowledge, what we saw with for instance, different experiences of different motel types or lobby types, depending on your scripts, your prior knowledge, you have they will impact your resource integration activities and your practices you are engaged in. And in the context of public transport, it's those two practices. And there's other factors which impact the customer experience of resource integration. And this will then form the basic of a holistic evaluation, similar to the Servicescape model. And this is the last part here, coming back to Adam's questions. This I researched and applied or established through a quantitative part of my research. I sent out 500 questionnaires, 500 in Karlstad and 500 in Gothenburg to slumpmässigt. Oh, now I'm what's slumpmässigt? To randomly to random sample in Gothenburg and Karlstad, asking about how they and validating satisfaction with travel, the satisfaction with travel scale. So where we tested a method how to measure customer experience in this context with public transport, but we could also show that you can do it in different contexts. So this part I did quantitatively, and this is really like it's hard to come by those processes and practices through quantitative work, Adam. if I might suggest. So, but measuring the in holistic evaluation of the experience, you can definitely do quantitatively, and this is what I did in this sense. But you can probably apply more quantitative methods when you think of, and especially it seems like you're interested in IT solutions and web pages. Their eye tracking is very much used, obviously. I don't know if you've done this. Sitting at when customers sit at the screen, a recording device recording what you exactly look at on the screen to quantitatively establish what was going on, and then following obviously also more click streams maybe, and other interactions with homepages. So this is depending on the setting, you can do it much more quantitatively. In a context like public transport, very difficult to this point still to make it quantitative. Does this answer your question, Adam?
It does. Thank you so much. If there is still time, I would like to quickly ask like one or two questions. If not, then I can email you for further advice from you. Say, like in terms of customer scripts, right? So these 4 types of scripts. I'm very curious, right? How do you identify, right, when you look at a customer and behaviors and whatever cues you can draw, insights you can draw from them? How do you determine which type of script, you know, like the customer is likely performing at that time, and then how do you further study the impact and come up with ways to influence that positively?
Yeah, I think this is a long chain, what you described, like first identifying which script there is, and then trying to impact the customer in order to make it better. I think what my take on this would be is like it's good to start thinking about that there are customers with different, and these are script types I explain here. You can read it in my thesis. This is script types I talk about. So it's like, and then I think what is useful for companies here in the sense to understand that there are different customers with different types of prior knowledge, really. And they can be very much, what also is important to think of, they can be very much different to the different practices. They're related, the prior knowledges are related to the practices here. You can have very much right and proper prior knowledge and can be very elaborate on navigating. But this must not be true for ticketing then, or for other practices which customers are involved in. So it's trying to elaborate a little bit more on the concept on prior knowledge and experience of an expert user and a new user. You could be very much be an expert in the one practices of your service, but not so much in other parts of the service. So, and this is just thinking about this way and thinking about your customers can help you to designing a better service. How can we approach newly users and make this, the payment system is maybe obvious from different shops, but other parts of navigating a certain home page might be different. So it's just thinking about what kind of practices are customers involved in, how is their prior knowledge to this, and what other scripts might they draw on in those practices, for instance, from other homepage settings or other services. So it's not, I cannot tell you like you in this situation you have to do this. I don't think we are there yet, but like from a analytical point of view, from understanding your customers, which this course is all about, is like starting point to acknowledge that there are different practices your customers involved in, and they have prior knowledge in those different practices. And when you think about this, I think then you can have a good starting point for designing a better product or service, if that made sense.
Thank you. It does. In fact, I think it's very important to acknowledge that itself. And from my experience, not everyone thinks like that, or acknowledge that there's like a really wide, diverse group of customers with different experience, especially more if you're working on something which is say virtual, and then it reaches a wide, it's so open and it reaches like different types of audience in different time zones and different locations and different cultures. So all of that, so it's really with a really open and objective mind to acknowledge that. Then I think it'll be better for us to really start, identifying the differences and start working to address them. But it is too diverse. I'm not quite sure, how to address that sometimes. I think this course is really helpful for us to start thinking in a more systematic, to start learning about different frameworks to understand things. And I think, thanks for hosting and organizing courses.
Yeah. Thank you. My pleasure. And this is what they really, this is. I know that there's a big consulting industry around customer experience management, and all of us, of course, would like to have the 10-step approach to making better customer experience. But we all know, in reality, it's a little bit more complicated like this. So this is the idea with the course and our course design, to give you some tools and frameworks and models for you to be able to use in understanding your customers better. But the analytic approach, this needs to be carried out by you, of course, with your customers. But hopefully there will be some guidelines and tools you can pick up to make a more informed investigations then. Yes. Any other questions or comments? So the first part really was about Mary Jo Bittner's. That's the first research article on the module. This last part is draws on my thesis, which you have the link also. And then you had another article which we didn't really touch, and that's if you're interested in what the office design does to your workforce and to yourself and your colleagues. So some recent, just published article, really, a few months old, of my colleagues and me. So just to reinforcing the part, this is also the physical environment. As you know, our office impacts highly on how we work. And also here, thinking of the scripts, what do I work with? What kind of types do I work with? This we don't touch so much in this article. We're a little bit more general, but there's a lot of interesting things going on research-wise at the moment. So, unless you have more questions or comments, I didn't have so much more. So,
if time permits, I always have a lot of questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it really depends on your convenience and other participants.
No, we have it scheduled at 1 o'clock, so we still have good 5 minutes. So go ahead.
Yeah. So this question, maybe it is not directly related to the course itself, but I'm quite curious about your research. Right? Your questions, your primary questions were, what do customers do in Servicescapes, and how well does the Servicescape function as a facilitator, right? And I think in this course and in this discussion, we have focused almost entirely and largely, I think it's the right thing to do for the course, right, on how businesses can probably enhance their services and sales, right, in facilitating, enabling customers to have a better experience, right? But my question is, when you conducted this research, did you also research in other areas? For example, say, maybe it's not sales, but maybe it's employee satisfaction. How do you create the environment, the work environment, the system, and all types of stuff for you to enable and empower your employees so that they're happy and they're productive, and in turn make your customers happy, right? So you also expand the applications or the research areas with these questions in other fields. I mean, that's my curiosity.
Yeah, and I don't know if you met Tobias then and on the webinar, but he, as you saw him on the picture there as well, with my colleagues, with the other two colleagues you've seen on this picture of the supermarket IKEA, they focus conduct a lot of studies in the retail industry, in the retail sector. So their research is very much focused on the context of retailing. How do people work their way through shops? What signs do they see? What signs do they not see? Where do they look at? And how can we improve their journey through the shop? And this is one area. And then there's another area which this is the second article in the module. This was about the employees, and this is something we just took up recently to look into what are there's a lot of research already on office floor plan layouts and related job satisfaction, productivity, and subjective well-being, for instance. So you have a good starting point in this article. I think if you want to find out more, we are looking and applying for new research funds in this aspect, in this area. There we haven't done a lot of work. But in the retail, it's a big industry, big part, and then we have also B2B contexts as well, obviously, understanding customer relationships between two companies or several companies, and what is happening in those contexts. So we are, I don't know if we, at CTF, we are more than 50, close to, or maybe even more than 60 senior researchers and PhD students. So there's a lot of research projects happening. So I'm not on top of all of them, but this are some major areas.
Yeah, that sounds very, very interesting. Thanks for sharing. I'll probably research it and read a little bit more about these and see what I can pick from that.
Yeah, for sure. My pleasure.
I think an area that may interest you and is very in line with this kind of research, and also quite in line with the questions that I've been asking today, is that, say, in both, for example, right, in both sectors such as retail as well as workplace, right? So I think what is getting more and more common, and I think is growing even more, is like in defining the servicescapes, right? Then there is going to be a mash of physical and virtual environments enabled by technologies, and there is increasingly more and more interactions between those two in enabling a customer or a user or an employee, right? So I think, yeah, if there is any research from you and your team from now or in the future in these areas, where you combine maybe sensors, other sensory kind of technologies, get insights or influence users, or to inform them, right, in terms of sensing, navigating, and all those experiences, I'm very interested to learn further.
Yeah, awesome. And what I could suggest you then is follow the newsletter of our research center at our homepage. If you Google Karlstad University CTF, you should see some links to the course, to the Service Research Center on the course homepage as well. We have a newsletter there. We obviously want to communicate with you guys out there and tell you about our latest findings. So and about upcoming research projects as well. So let us know your email address, and we keep you posted about the latest. Then
definitely, I'll do. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. My pleasure. But now it's 1 o'clock. We used our time wisely, I think. And thanks for participating. And if you have any other questions or concerns or issues with the course, of course, let me know. Otherwise, thanks. Otherwise, I'll see you next week, I guess. We do a tweet chat on the topic. And I hope a lot of you will be joining then as well, and also a lot of you who watched this recording of today's webinar. So have a great week, and see you next time.
You too. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you. See you.
Bye.